Hi there. Folks of my age, so-called senior citizens, are the unsung role models for how people think about what their lives will be in the future. If you're already of my age, I'll show you now how your life is shaping the impressions and the expectations of everyone coming after you. And if you're younger than a senior citizen, then I'll show you now how your expectations came to be and why most of them are really wrong. Here's a simple XY graph. The x-axis is time. Earlier in time is to the left and later in time is to the right. The y-axis is the stages of life. You're born, you're a child, then a teenager, an adult, senior citizen, and then you're dead. I could use more finely grained stages. For example, I could add a young adult stage. I chose these 6 because I have only so much screen real estate. You'll note I put a bigger gap between adult and senior than between the other stages because we're an adult for a longer time than we are a teenager or a child. Now, I'll put myself on the graph. I was born in 1957. Let's say I'll die in 2042. My line shows that I was born in 1957 and I went through and am still going through life stages. And at some point I'll expire. That will be a sad day for the entire planet. I won't be there, so I won't care, but I do expect a lot of parades. From when I was a child until just a few years ago, I carried beliefs about what life would be like as a senior citizen. They were a set of assumptions or expectations that were formed starting when I was 5 or 6 years old. Were those expectations that I would be a lump in a sick bed, or sitting on a rocking chair on the porch, or going out swing dancing? It doesn't really matter. You look around and you take in what you see and you form expectations about life as an adult and life as an older adult. So let me put now on the graph someone to represent those seniors from which I formed my earliest impressions. I'll call this person Joshua. So this line is a representation of all the lives who were 60 when I was 5 or 6. So I saw seniors doing whatever they were doing in 1963, and they would be my earliest role models for what life would be like when I turned 60. 10 years later, I'm a teenager. And I'm worried about everything, as teenagers are. I'm worried about school. I'm worried about whether I'll ever have a girlfriend. I'm worried about the acne on my face. I'm worried about what life is all about and what it's like to be really old. So now I'm going to add someone named Selena to the graph. Selena represents the people who were 60 when I was a teenager. Now, yes, teenager is a span of years and senior citizens is a span of years, but this graph is being kept deliberately simple so that, we can get through this in a short amount of time. So at this point, Josh is dead, or he moved away, or maybe he's still alive and he's now in his 70s. If so, he's still part of the senior citizen cohort, but he's just moved to a different stratum. Now let's jump ahead to the present day. Somewhere, a young child is looking around, taking in everything as young kids do. So a kid might see me driving, might see me shopping, might see me walking to my night school classes. So now I'm going to add someone named Cindy to the graph to represent people who are young children today. So today, at this very second, Cindy sees how I and all other so-called senior citizens are living our lives. I did the same thing as a kid and a teenager, and also as a later adult, with people who were ahead of me in years. As I did, I looked around, I gathered information. Cindy is doing the same thing and looking around and seeing me and other people my age. So now I'm going to add a few more lives to the graph and connect the young eyes to who they're observing. We observe at every point in our lives. We don't just observe when we're 5 or 6 and then not do any more observing until we're 59 and a half. We gather information, we read, we interact with people, we interact with older people at work, we interact with older people socially. Our earliest impressions were formed when we were youngest, and they're still there. It's a layer of expectations and assumptions. I think it's safe to say that the initial impressions never go away, they're never erased, but a fraction of what you think life will be like when you reach a certain age is still connected to your earliest impressions of what life was like at that age. So at any point in time, Senior citizens, so-called, are role models to younger people. But here's the subtlety. The lives of older people change over time. Your impressions, your expectations are based on inaccurate, incorrect information. It was correct at the time, but it's not correct anymore. Throughout time, the arc of history has always bended toward improvement. For example, over time, medicine has improved, and society has become more open, liberal, and just. Technology has improved, and by this I mean all technology in every industry and occupation. Everything improves over time. Everything becomes better, stronger, fairer, lasts longer, higher quality, etc. In particular, for folks of my age, medicine, nutrition, accessibility, mental therapies, alternative physical therapies, society's acceptance of alternative lifestyles, all of those things improve the lives, the options for senior citizens. Now here's one more illustration that ties everything together. The x-axis is time once again, and it's marching to the right. The y-axis, however, is the role model that so-called senior citizens exemplify. For a long time, the conventional wisdom that the elderly, as was the common term until pretty recently, the conventional wisdom was that the elderly were generally decrepit. They sat around doing nothing except eating and pooping, and they were in poor health, and then they eventually died. I think of Granny on the Beverly Hillbillies as a late-stage example of this expectation. At some point, as things got better, the stereotype changed, and the stereotype is based upon what people saw around them. Seniors were expected to read a lot, stay informed, stay plugged in, but they weren't expected to be physically active. I call this the rocking chair on the front porch expectation. Speaking just for myself, this was my earliest impression of what life would be like as a senior citizen. Relaxed, doing a lot of reading, sipping on a mint julep in the late afternoon, sitting on the rocking chair on the porch and just watching the world go by. True story, when I was a little kid, there was an elderly priest named Father Harari. And Father Harari was 1 billion years old. He was always at the Lynbrook Public Library. The Lynbrook Public Library had daily papers from, I won't say all over the world, this is a small village, but there were like 30 newspapers there, right? American and a smattering of overseas papers that probably arrived 1 or 2 days late. Father Harari's thing was to be at the public library and read every newspaper. And I am not kidding. He read every newspaper. He was always there going through the paper. He had his chair. He sat there. It was near the front door, and it was a thing. Whenever I went to the public library, Father Harari was there. That was his thing. That was one of my earliest memories of what life was like as a senior citizen, as an older person. Then came the expectation that seniors were socially and culturally active and plugged into the world. I remember this being my impression in the 1970s, early 1980s. Time passes and society's expectations of senior citizen life morphs again. Nowadays, it's not uncommon to see seniors having a second or third career, going out bicycling, going on long hikes, going camping, going out on races, right? Senior divisions for, marathons and triathlons. You see where this is going. Over time, so-called senior citizen life has always become more active, more plugged in, more alive, more of everything. So here's the rub. The senior citizens that you first noticed when you were a child, and then later as you grew into your teenage years and young adult years and you're seeing how they're living their lives, they were living a different kind of life than you will when you become their age. I'll now switch back to the first graph. All of us collect expectations of what life will be like in the only way we can, by observing. But the observations are inherently wrong. Unless there's a gargantuan, mammoth disturbance in human societies, everyone's senior years will surpass their internally stored role models. The models get updated as we age, for sure. But those first role models are still there, buried, contributing to what you think life will be like. And they're still inaccurate. For those of you not yet in my age group, life when you get to be my age will be better than anything you can expect right now. More active, more connected, more alive. And you must keep your mind open and flexible on the question of what your life will be like when you're 60 and beyond. And when you're a senior, you'll set role models for those younger than you. They'll look at your life going out dancing and rock climbing, and they'll see you maybe going on a shuttle to the moon or to Mars. They'll see you dancing in whatever the mid-21st century equivalent of a mosh pit is, and they'll say, ah, that's what it's like to be a senior citizen. I get it. And they'll be wrong, because their life will be even better than yours, but they'll be using you as a role model. You will be guiding their expectations of life. And the lesson, if you're my age or older, I want you to think about the role models that you're setting for other people. Right now, I'm embarking on my third career. Never expect to do it, but I'm doing it. I'm working to become a watchmaker. I'm going to night school classes. I'm planning to go back to school full time, setting examples for those coming after us. We're all role models for each other, and we're all updating the role models that others set for us in previous years. Think about that. Till next time, take care.